Hi, I'm Christy. I'm a registered psychotherapist and naturopathic doctor, and this is Conversations with Clients, where we chat about things that have come up in session in hopes that they are helpful to you as well. So today's chat was with a client who, whenever she comes in, there's a lot to talk about. She has a lot to say, a lot going on, a lot she wants to get off her chest. But the other day she kind of just stopped and she said, I'm so sick of talking. I'm so sick of hearing myself say the same things over and over and over again. Which was a really interesting moment for us to kind of pause, chat about what was going on in therapy, what we wanted to be happening in therapy, and how different therapies affect different levels of the brain. So I've kind of compiled like a therapy model that pulls on a whole bunch of other people's brilliance and sort of mashes it into something that makes sense to my mind. Based on all the people's brilliance that I've pulled into this, I'm currently calling this the Sinek, MacLean, Siegel patent model of therapy. There's a lot more initials and names that I probably could have put in there. And to be clear, I have not worked with Simon Sinek, Paul MacLean, or Dan Siegel. They may or may not want to be attributed with my therapy model, but I'm going to pay them tribute for now until they tell me not to. So, a while back, Simon Sinek gave a TED Talk called Start with the Why, where he used this diagram to illustrate that there are always three things that are happening. There's what is happening, how it's happening, and why it's happening. And this idea kind of blew my mind at the time. The TED Talk was seemingly about marketing, although I found that way of framing things to be so helpful in so many areas of my life and things that I do, and it's become such an important organizing principle for me. It's how I think about therapy. It's how I case conceptualize, which is to say how I think about what I'm seeing in my clients. You know, clients usually come in with a what. They come in with what is going on. Anxiety, depression, procrastination, relationship difficulties. Name your symptom. What are symptoms? They are the most outer, the most superficial layer of the whole situation. They're kind of like a signal. You know, if they're the tip of the iceberg. They are the smoke that indicates there's a fire. They are pointing at something, but they are not the full picture. One layer deeper than that are hows. How is this happening? What internal processes and dynamics are giving rise to what we're seeing? What thoughts, what emotions, what beliefs, what parts of ourself are at play? What patterns of thoughts or behavior, what procedural habits are contributing? Hows are processes. And one layer deeper than that are whys. Why is this happening? You know, nature just doesn't do anything in vain. If it's happening for a reason. So what is that reason? What function is it serving? What purpose does it have? What need is it meeting? What's the feared consequence if this doesn't happen? Those kind of questions will start to point at the why. And you know, the why, if what's are symptoms, the whys are the root cause. Whys are the heart of the matter. Whys are usually some sort of wound, injury, unhealed experience. So we have the what, the how, and the why. This is the Sinek contribution to the SMSP model of therapy. Now on to MacLean and Siegel. So Paul MacLean gave us the triune brain, which was a way of sort of chunking the brain into three separate, distinct areas that really sort of have different responsibilities and do different things. These are the same three levels that Dan Siegel uses in his hand model of the brain. So there is our frontal cortex, which deals with thoughts and rationality and planning and all that kind of stuff. There is our limbic system, which deals in emotions, and there is our basal ganglia and our deep brain, which deals with felt sense experience and sensation. And what's interesting is that you can actually start to map the 3 different layers of what's happening, the what, the how, and the why, onto the 3 different levels of the brain. So, what's tend to be held at the highest level of our brain. This is the part of our brain that is most conscious, and it's the only part of our brain that is verbal. So it's the only part of our brain that can deal in language. Our hows and our whys are much more often held at the deeper levels of our brain. So this is the realm of unconscious, implicit experience. This part is largely unconscious, and it doesn't have any access to language. It doesn't speak English or any other language, right? So we have our 3 levels of experience. We have our 3 levels of the brain. And now we can actually start to map different therapies onto the levels of the brain that they work on, and therefore the levels of experience that they are likely to target. So traditional talk therapy or cognitive therapy is going to be primarily a frontal cortex activity, right? This is the only part of our brain that's verbal. Therefore, it's the only part of our brain that's really touched by a verbal processing modality, right? So cognitive therapy, talk therapy is primarily operating at the realm of the what's. That's not a dig at talk therapy. Talk therapy can be so helpful at building insight, awareness, understanding, which are incredibly therapeutic in and of their own right. And they are also almost always a prerequisite for working at the deeper levels of the brain and the other levels of experience. On the flip side, therapies that would traditionally fall into what's called like experiential type therapies like internal family systems, sensory motor psychotherapy, somatic experiencing, deep brain reorienting. These therapies touch deeper and deeper levels of the brain, and therefore are more ideally suited to working with the hows and the whys. So, sometimes I use the analogy of the menu and the meal to sort of distinguish between like talk therapies and experiential therapies. If you go to a restaurant and you're hungry, if all you do is look at the menu and then leave, you're still gonna be hungry, right? The menu is helpful. It lets you know what's available and sort of points you in the direction of what you might like to order. But to address the hunger, you actually have to eat. The menu is not the meal. And talking is not healing. So to circle back to my clients, I think what she was really expressing when she was saying, like, I'm sick of hearing myself talk, was the frustration with sort of just circling around the what's. And when we laid it all out like this, she says, oh yes, and there's a why to that too. If I stay in the what's, I don't have to look at the uncomfortable stuff underneath. Which, kudos to her, was a great insight. It shows a lot of self-awareness. And it really allowed us then to dig a little bit deeper and work with the how and the why that was giving rise to that pattern. So that's the SMSP model of therapy, and why staying in the what's for too long may leave you hungry. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have questions, I may have answers. Put them in the comment section below, and I will try my best. Take care.